Jenny stepping off that plane in India was supposed to be the start of a fairy tale, but right from day one, reality hit harder than she expected. Imagine leaving everything you know, your home, your friends, the comfort of your life, and diving headfirst into a world that isn't just different, it's entirely foreign. The bustling streets, the smells, the sounds, the language. It's overwhelming even for a visitor, let alone someone trying to build a life from scratch. Jenny did all of that because of love, pure and simple. But love, as she would soon discover, doesn't come with a manual for surviving cultural shock. She traded her independence for a small apartment in a neighborhood where she didn't know anyone. She gave up the familiar rhythm of her life in California, and even the little things like a cup of coffee exactly how she liked it. Every day was a negotiation with a new culture, a new way of thinking, and a family that watched her every move. At first, she smiled through it, pretending that she was okay. But pretending only works for so long. Her identity, the part of her that felt at home in her own skin, started to feel stretched and frayed. She wasn't just adjusting to life in India, she was rewriting herself for someone else, hoping the sacrifice would be worth it. Sumit, meanwhile, was living his own kind of pressure cooker. He loves Jenny, that much is clear, but he's caught between two worlds. On one side, there's his family, who never fully accepted her. On the other, his own heart, which refuses to let go. The weight of expectations, tradition, and family opinion hangs over him constantly. Even small decisions feel like walking a tightrope, and every conversation with Jenny is shadowed by the silent threat of judgment from his parents. You thought long distance was hard? Try balancing love, culture, and parental approval all at once, with cameras following your every move. Despite the challenges, there were moments of hope. A shared laugh at a street market, a quiet evening at home, fleeting glimpses of what made the effort worthwhile. But every victory came with friction, subtle and sharp. Arguments over family visits, small cultural misunderstandings, the kind of things that pile up quietly until they can't be ignored anymore. She thought she could handle it, but things got worse. Jenny's journey wasn't just about moving countries. It was about carrying the emotional weight of leaving her entire world behind and the slow realization that love alone may not shield you from loneliness, criticism, and cultural isolation. Sumit's perspective adds another layer. A man trying to hold on to the woman he loves while keeping peace with a family that doesn't fully accept her. Together, they navigate a delicate, emotionally charged path, one where every small misstep has amplified consequences. Even in those early days, you could see the cracks forming beneath Jenny's composed exterior. The sacrifices she made were enormous, but the challenges she faced were multiplying faster than anyone could have predicted. Even when the cameras weren't rolling, the tension was palpable. Jenny would sit at the dinner table, smiling politely while Sumit's family carried on around her, but there was an unmistakable silence between them that spoke louder than words. Minor disagreements over visiting relatives or cultural customs felt like earthquakes. Every conversation carried an undertone of judgment. Every glance weighed her worth. The small gestures of daily life, pouring tea, choosing a seat, even laughing at a joke, became tests she didn't know she could pass. It wasn't laziness or carelessness that made Jenny retreat to her room some nights. Her exhaustion was survival instinct kicking in. Trying to reconcile her identity with the expectations around her left her drained in a way that few could see. Private confessionals caught her wiping tears from her eyes, voice barely audible, heart heavy with unspoken frustration. You could feel the gap between hope and despair stretching wider with every interaction. Even when Sumit tried to reassure her, promising that things would improve, it was like filling a bucket with a hole in the bottom. And then there were the moments that looked normal on camera, but were anything but. Silent dinners, where she picked at her food, while Sumit's parents exchanged loaded glances. A comment dropped casually about tradition that left her biting her lip, holding back an argument she had rehearsed in her mind for hours. These small scenes added up over time, creating a weight that was impossible to ignore. She wanted to be part of this new life. She wanted to make it work, but the constant pressure wore down even the strongest resolve. It was a slow burn. Every misunderstanding, every rejection, Every tiny criticism built on top of the last until the emotional tension became almost unbearable. Jenny's hope that love could conquer all was being tested against the relentless reality of cultural differences and family rejection. And the harder she tried to adjust, the more obvious it became that love alone wasn't enough. You could see it in the way she hesitated before answering, the way she retreated to quiet corners, the way her smile flickered only to vanish in a moment. Sumit felt it too. Watching Jenny struggle, he wanted to fix it, but his options were limited. Caught between loyalty to his family and devotion to the woman he loved, he spent nights pacing, replaying conversations, wondering if there was something he missed, some compromise he could offer. There was love, undeniably, but it wasn't free of the emotional toll that came with living under scrutiny and constant judgment. Their relationship became a delicate dance of intention and consequence, where a wrong step meant months of tension. And just when you thought the weight of it all might ease, things escalated. One evening, during a private family dinner that wasn't supposed to be filmed, something was said that left Jenny silent, staring at her plate. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just sat, letting the words sink in. The quiet was heavier than any shouting could have been. That night marked a turning point, a line in the sand. All the accumulated stress, the emotional labor, the sacrifices, it all pressed down, and Jenny realized she couldn't keep pretending. Her breaking point was imminent. Every tear she had held back, every long hour spent questioning herself, every compromise she had made suddenly converged into a moment of clarity. She understood that survival sometimes meant making a choice that love alone couldn't dictate. The relationship that had begun with dreams and devotion was now teetering on the edge, and no one could predict which way it would fall. Then, one dinner changed everything, and Jenny finally acted. Jenny didn't make a scene. There were no dramatic arguments, no yelling matches, just quiet, deliberate movement. She folded her clothes neatly, tucked away the few framed pictures she had hung on the walls, and left a note on the kitchen counter. It wasn't long or dramatic, just simple words that carried the weight of months of struggle. I did my best. I put my heart into it. Then she walked out the door, suitcase in hand, leaving behind a life she had fought so hard to build. Sumit came home later that evening and immediately sensed something was off. The apartment felt empty in a way that wasn't just about missing objects. Her presence, her laughter, the way she moved through the space, all of it was gone. He called her name softly at first, then louder, pacing from room to room as reality started to hit. Every familiar corner reminded him she wasn't there. His voice cracked, faltering, as he tried to hold back tears that were beyond containment. The man who had seemed so confident in love now looked lost, wandering aimlessly through the apartment as if he might find her in some forgotten corner. Jenny's departure wasn't just an act of leaving a country, it was a decision to reclaim herself. The constant pressure from Sumit's family, the unspoken judgments, the feeling that she would never fully belong, had been pressing on her every day. She had sacrificed comfort, identity, and connection for love, but there was only so much anyone can give before self-preservation becomes the only option. This wasn't betrayal. It was survival. Every mile she traveled toward the airport, every check-in and layover, carried the weight of years spent trying to make love conquer what culture and expectations had refused to bend. Back in India, Sumit struggled with the immediate aftermath. Neighbors reported seeing him wandering late at night, head down, hands in his pockets, eyes searching for something that wasn't there. Meals went untouched. Friends tried to reach out, but he was silent, lost in his own grief. The very streets they had once walked together now felt like a haunting reminder of what he had lost. Every decision he had made, every compromise he had asked Jenny to make, now seemed painfully clear in its consequences. The contrast was stark. Jenny was on a plane, navigating airports, thinking through what to do next, emotionally exhausted, but moving toward a sense of agency. Sumit was still trapped in the apartment, trapped in his own regret, trying to make sense of a choice he hadn't fully anticipated. Every voicemail she didn't answer, every message left unanswered, added another layer to the emotional chasm between them. Even those who watched the TLC cameras closely only caught glimpses of the heartbreak. Fans saw her leaving, some tears, a suitcase packed, but the reality behind the scenes was far deeper. Private moments of quiet sobbing, phone calls to friends, and the silent collapse of two people who had once believed love could overcome everything were largely invisible. The story that aired was only a fraction of the emotional devastation unfolding on both sides of the continent. Jenny's choice was deliberate. Each step she took toward the airport, each decision to leave a piece of herself behind, reflected the immense psychological toll of love under pressure. Cultural expectations, family judgment, and relentless emotional labor had built an invisible prison. Walking away didn't erase love, it just acknowledged that love alone couldn't sustain her anymore. Fans only saw a glimpse on camera. The full heartbreak was way worse. Jenny's first days back in California were quiet, almost surreal. The streets felt familiar, but she noticed how different everything seemed without the constant pressure of trying to fit into someone else's world. Her favorite coffee shop, the corner park, even the sound of birds outside her window, it all reminded her of a life she had almost forgotten. Slowly, she began reclaiming small pieces of herself, cooking meals she liked, listening to music without compromise, laughing at little things that once seemed insignificant. There was subtle joy in simple routines, a relief that came from being able to breathe without explaining or apologizing for who she was. Sumit, on the other hand, stayed in India, trapped in a cycle that most fans could only imagine. He visited the market where they had once shopped together, stopped by the park where they had shared quiet afternoons, and even went to the temple they had prayed in side by side. Everything held a memory, and every memory was bittersweet. He prepared 2 cups of tea each morning, as if one of them might magically reappear. Meals were often untouched, evenings spent staring at empty chairs and familiar objects. The man who had tried to balance love and family expectations was now confronting the emptiness left behind, and it was palpable. If you've been in love, you know this sting. The kind that doesn't just hurt the heart, but echoes in every corner of your daily life. Jenny's choice to leave wasn't about giving up on love, it was about refusing to lose herself in the process. And that distinction is powerful. Self-preservation isn't weakness, it's clarity. It's knowing when holding on costs more than letting go. Every small step she took in California reinforced her sense of agency, slowly building the strength she had spent years trying to maintain in India. Meanwhile, Sumit's grief was raw and unfiltered. Social media silence, missed calls, restless nights, his life became a series of quiet reminders of what was gone. Friends and neighbors noticed his wandering, a man still tied to memories he could not yet release. Yet there was also a subtle shift. Even in grief, there was recognition. Jenny had left because love alone wasn't enough, and that realization was part of the painful truth he had to accept. Through it all, one lesson stood out. Love can be immense, but it cannot replace respect, acceptance, or the ability to protect yourself. Jenny's journey back home highlighted how much strength it takes to leave a life behind, even when your heart still lingers. And Sumit's process reminded viewers that heartbreak doesn't disappear overnight, that it reshapes routines and relationships, leaving both pain and insight in its wake. But could this really be the end of their story? As news of Jenny leaving spread, social media exploded. Fans dissected every photo, every caption, every subtle change in posting habits. Some applauded her bravery, calling it a long overdue act of self-respect. Others questioned her decision, arguing that love should have endured, no matter the struggle. Threads of speculation stretched across Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit. People debated family influence, cultural differences, and whether Sumit could have done more to save the relationship. TLC viewers shared clips, rewatched confessionals, and pored over timestamps, trying to figure out the exact moment things went wrong. Rumors swirled that behind-the-scenes footage contained even more raw emotion than what aired. Some fans imagined quiet conversations, tearful phone calls, and heartfelt goodbyes that were never broadcast. Would you have stayed if you were in Jenny's shoes? Could you forgive a love that demanded constant compromise and emotional labor? These questions sparked heated discussions online, leaving viewers divided, yet deeply invested. Jenny herself remained mostly silent on social media. She posted occasional photos with family or friends, smiling subtly, but never mentioned Sumit directly. Her silence only fueled curiosity. Fans speculated about her day-to-day life, her emotional state, and whether she had second thoughts. Meanwhile, Sumit's absence from social platforms added another layer of mystery. His accounts were quiet, amplifying the sense of grief and longing that the cameras couldn't fully capture. Comments poured in from both sides. Supporters praised her courage, applauding her decision to prioritize self-preservation. Critics expressed disappointment, questioning whether love alone should have been enough to overcome the obstacles. Yet, even in criticism, there was acknowledgement of the difficulty of cross-cultural relationships, the pressure of family expectations, and the human toll of trying to bridge two very different worlds. Jenny's story became a mirror for audiences to reflect on their own relationships, asking what they would tolerate and when enough truly becomes enough. The chatter online kept the drama alive, but fans knew they had only seen part of the story. TLC insiders hinted at unreleased material, unseen moments, and emotional sequences that could change perceptions. There was more behind the scenes you haven't seen yet, and it promised to deepen the heartbreak, the lessons, and the emotional payoff for anyone watching closely. Months after the departure, TLC quietly approached both Jenny and Sumit about a reunion. It wasn't the dramatic, staged confrontation some fans might expect. Instead, the team offered a chance to reflect, to speak candidly, and to face each other in a controlled, private setting. Jenny agreed, but only under the condition that she could express herself fully, without edits shaping the narrative. Sumit, still processing his grief, hesitated at first, but eventually accepted. Jenny's interview was intimate and raw. She spoke about the years spent adjusting to a life that wasn't truly hers, the weight of constant cultural pressure, and the heartbreak of loving someone while losing herself. She acknowledged Sumit's love for her, but emphasized that love alone had limits. The act of leaving, she explained, was not failure, but a deliberate reclaiming of her identity. Every decision, every tear, every moment of doubt had led to one conclusion: she had to prioritize herself, even if it meant stepping away from the person she loved. Sumit's portion was equally revealing. He admitted his mistakes, recognizing how much he relied on hope and promises rather than action. He spoke about the loneliness of waiting, the quiet torment of seeing Jenny depart, and the realization that family pressure had shaped many of his choices. There was no anger, no blame, only a raw acknowledgement of what went wrong and what they both could have done differently. When the two finally met, the atmosphere was tentative, but charged with emotion. Jenny smiled softly, not with longing, but with understanding. Sumit's eyes betrayed both sorrow and respect. They shared a moment of forgiveness, a recognition of mistakes without assigning blame. Jenny admitted that she forgave him, but she also made clear that returning wasn't possible. The reconciliation wasn't about reigniting love. It was about closure, honesty, and respect. Psychologically, leaving had been an act of strength. Jenny demonstrated that stepping away from a situation that erodes your sense of self isn't weakness. It's clarity, courage, and self-preservation. Sumit's response showed the power of reflection. Grief can coexist with growth, and heartbreak can teach lessons about limits, love, and resilience. Both had changed, learned, and survived. The reunion left viewers with a deep, bittersweet understanding. Love is powerful, but self-respect is vital. Jenny reclaimed her life, Sumit acknowledged his part, and both gained a measure of peace. But just when they thought it was over, something unexpected happened.